8 Nederlanders and 22 Northmen are on this acquisition trip far west from Vinland. We had trapped and snared by 2 kinsmen. One day's travel to the north in the stone. We were fishing one day. After we came home, I found 10 men red with blood and death. Ave Maria, saved from evil. There are 10 men at the inland sea to look after our ship, 14 days' travel from this well. Year of our Lord, 1362.
It's a message that's written for somebody they knew. And they're telling them where the ships are, how far away they are, what direction they are.
Well, I don't think the Runestone is an authentic 14th century artifact.
If you could prove it was true, it would be fantastic. I think it's probably authentic.
It's the oldest written document in North America, or the Americas, in the European continent. It's also the first Christian prayer recorded in North America, or in the Western Hemisphere. Ave Maria, say with me.
It's a deliberate act. It's one that took a lot of labor. The kind of labor someone who is grieving for their comrades would be following this tradition of Scandinavia for many centuries that they clearly were familiar with.
In the last years of the 1800s, what appeared to a 10-year-old boy as Indian writing against stone ignited a firestorm of controversy. The battle began in northwest Minnesota in 1898 and soon spread to Scandinavia. Scholars from around the world were asked to pass judgment on a 200-feet-pound glacial rock, measuring roughly 30 by 16 by 5, dug up in the heartland of the North American continent. Could this stone and its etchings be a relic from the ancient past, or an invention on the part of Scandinavian immigrants searching for a past and place in North American history?
I think it would be a fantastic coincidence that the area of the most intensive Scandinavian immigration to the New World, where these people settled, is right dead center almost where Kensington is today.
A lot of recent arrivals in America, immigrants, were very concerned about their status in American society.
What intrigued everyone was what young Edward Oman thought was an Indian almanac. The stone's date, 1362, appears in base 5, or pentatic numbers.
If you read that number, it obviously doesn't say 1362. If you read it as Roman numbers, it's the same with Zoom.
We have now found calendars where pentatic numbers are used in dates. Read them like Arab numbers.
Archaeologist Alice Kehoe reads significance in the inscribed date.
Oh my God. 1362 was probably the worst crisis ever in the entire thousands of years of Scandinavia. It was total disaster there for the King of Sweden. And it could explain why some Norse might have gone all this extraordinary distance inland. Because they had the very worst crisis ever. There's a Black Death killing half or more of their people, and the German patriotically closing off all their shipping, putting an embargo on them.
I just don't see a reason that would drive them to come to the heart of the mid-continent. It just doesn't make sense to me. Minnesota really doesn't have any compelling reason to come here. I mean, the Indian groups that were there at that time were not using metal. They didn't have gold. You just had pretty much hunter and gatherer tribes that have fairly basic technology, nothing probably that even the Vikings would want to trade for, and certainly no wealth.
Furs were wealth. And the record exists in Scandinavia that the Greenlanders exported North American furs to Norway.
It's not just the presence of medieval Scandinavians in North America, predating Columbus's first voyage by 130 years, but the letters in the language on the stone that have fueled the controversy this past century. The only thing everyone agrees with is that whoever carved the inscription knew about the ancient runic alphabet. Dr. Richard Nielsen has studied runes in Scandinavian languages for nearly 4 decades.
In 1900, there were 30 word forms on the Kensington runestone. And we have a timeline showing how they've been discovered to be Old Swedish in the last 100 years. At that time, they were thought to be proofs of forgery. Today, 100 years later, they're compelling evidence to the contrary. No one in Scandinavia has looked at this information for 50 years. They're not aware of it. They didn't actually do the job then.
Archaeologist Regina Wallace says the ruins alone point to a 19th century fabrication.
The ruins on the stone are not medieval ruins, except for a few that's just in the same period of centuries.
The evidence is old home.
They're extremely typical for 19th century ruins and scripts, complete with umlauts and so forth.
The umlaut, or double dot, becomes critical in this debate.
The double dots over these vowels were by the Crow and Farm have always thought that they were umlauts. And those attempting to show the authenticity of the Kensington runestone tried to find early umlauts. Usually on the Kensington stone must be an abbreviation. And the abbreviation was a very general abbreviation. It could mean insert a vowel or insert a consonant or add ER or you know what the word is, and I'm just telling you this is an abbreviation.
Some of the double dots were not clearly visible in early photographs and copies of the stone, resulting in various translations.
Well, the har had a double dot on it. We weren't sure from the photographs that it was there. It looked like there was one dot, but there's two dots. This is very interesting because har, H-A-R for have, or there are, had two A's in a very important document in Old Swedish. Only one document, but it's from 1340 in the Old Swedish dictionary. So it's a very authentic word that's been overlooked. And they didn't, by the way, spell it that way in the 19th century.
Everybody who's ever seen anything in medieval languages or phonology in Scandinavia, in the various Scandinavian countries, were contacted then and over the years until our day.
One particular phrase inscribed on the stone of Dagasafar, translated in English as acquisition trip or discovery journey, caught everyone's attention.
Discovery journey, Apdaldosfard, I think is the word. That was a word that appeared in Svenska America Posten. This was a 19th century publication that people in the Kensington area were getting.
Finding that word on the runestone is extremely suspicious.
Updaga was the meaning to discover, was a much earlier word than people had thought. Updaga, well, according to Sara, a famous Danish philologist, it was in Danish already in the 1500s. And yet, this word is touted as being absolute proof, and the experts don't even have the knowledge that's existing in published material. Our knowledge of Old Swedish and Old Danish is still imperfect. The investigations by the scholars are still ongoing. New things are discovered all the time.
An undisputed fact, a Swedish immigrant, Olof Ullman, unearthed the stone sometime in 1898. He, his son Edward, and a neighbor, Neil Flatten, said the rock was discovered wrapped in the roots of an aspen or poplar tree.
I think that Ullman and a couple of his neighbors came up with this idea. I wouldn't be surprised if it was finding of a stone that inspired them to it. That they found the stone as it is, and then decided to carve on it.
They're in opposition to the evidence the stone is presenting.
Adaptational and accredited archaeologists, anthropologists, linguists, runologists, philologists, historians cannot agree on the origin of the Kensington runestone. But a group of scientists is trying to change that. Barry Hanson heads up the team.
There's an H right here. It's absolutely critical to what we're doing. That was placed in the stone in 1908. That gives us a control to compare to all of these other rune forms here. Anything that we look at chemically in a rune, we compare to the H. If we see pyrolusite or manganese oxide or anything in here, we go right straight to the H and we say, does it occur in the H? If it doesn't occur in the H, but it occurs here, and we know it took time to occur here, we go, aha.
Hanson enlisted the aid of geochemists, geophysicists, archaeologists, letter carvers, and geologists.
The areas that we've talked about show weathering, significant weathering of minerals that do not break down quickly.
Walter plans a tombstone or graveyard study. He'll compare features on old Minnesota grave markers to the runestone.
The whole point of the graveyard studies is to try to put a timeline on how long it took that weathering
to take a fresh fractured area to look weathered to this point, like you see here.
There's no doubt that the stone itself is old. It would be a matter of how you do the carving, and there's always a lot of discrepancy in how you can do carving.
Hanson and his team suggest early conclusions about the stone were based on inaccuracies, gossip, and a lack of scientific evidence. He calls it drive-by archaeology.
They drive by. They come by, take a pot shot, and leave. And we don't get a chance to nail them against the wall.
Dr. John Polanski edits an epigraphic journal.
The experts who had commented on the stone had shown their lack of attention to detail, the lack of scholarship, and that was, to me, even more interesting because experts often give their opinions about things without having sufficient effort or knowledge to make their opinions.
The original experts, I guess I'll call them, of the day, shortly after the stone was found, looked at it without the information that they really needed and rendered an opinion. That opinion was passed on to their disciples, if you will.
People seem to think that one so-called expert who only repeated what the other expert had said. This is not true at all. These people had studied it independently.
Science can get very competitive. In this particular area of archaeology, when a person of authority makes a statement about something, then it is not considered proper in the field for someone to criticize that, even if they're right in the criticism, because they may never get a job again.
What are the chances that an academic who can't explain the stone would lie to me? Darn good. What's the academic trying to protect? His scrawny academic rear end. And he doesn't know very much. What's Olaf Ullman trying to protect? He has nothing in the world except his integrity and his work ethic. And his kids all Cedric and his family. And this lousy farm, they were trying to grub some trees. And he grubbed a tree and it happened beyond it.
People he was intimate with at that time, that's the most important development of the relative again. Real joking, a real intellectual person.
Olaf Ullman was not a scientist. Olaf Ullman was defensive. Some academics came along and scapegoated him, and they got off the hook because there was nobody out there that could go back to the academics and say, let me see your data. And that's all we're doing.
And remember, Olaf Ullman got no money. He did not gain anything material from it. He never tried to exhibit it all himself. There was no return, no profit for him.
The fact of the matter is, Olaf Ullman could not fake pyrolitha on his greenstone.
As the scientists try to determine whether the Kensington Runestone is a 19th century forgery or a monument to fallen brethren carved by ancient Norse explorers, the often contentious Kensington Runestone controversy is far from over.
Just like the South. So the circumstances surrounding its purported manufacture are not miraculous, but other than that, I think it's the same kind of artifact.
It's a matter of faith, I think, if you believe in the Runestone or not, and that's the way I see it. I don't belittle people that believe in it, because it's a matter of almost religion. They believe in it strongly, and they're entitled to that belief. But if they want archaeology to support it, they've got to come forward with more evidence than the stone itself.
The Kensington stone is a remarkable monument to Scandinavian sense of humor in Minnesota 100 years ago.
There is nothing on the Kensington Runestone that cannot be demonstrated to be from the 14th century. Period.
I understand that there may be discoveries in the future that would change my mind. I haven't seen those discoveries yet.